Hello beautiful community, welcome to this week's video. So this week I was reading an instruction manual, and in particular the pages of warnings. Don't ask me, it's a long story. And after reading them, I began to think that I do quite a few of the things that they tell you not to do. So I went back into some of the old videos to have a look to see what I actually did, and sure enough, there is quite a few things that I do that I shouldn't do, and there's also some things that are good habits, I suppose. So I've got some good and bad habits. So I thought I'd just go through 8 of the habits, and then you can decide whether they're good or bad, and whether you do the same as what I do. So I haven't put them in order, but I've just got number 1, and that's footwear. You've got to have proper footwear. And at one stage I did have proper footwear. I had runners and sneakers, and I've got a rubber mat on the concrete to give me a bit of support as well. But I found that I always had to take my shoes and socks off when I went inside, and of course I used to go inside and have cups of coffee a fair bit. So the shoes and socks had to be cleaned all the time, and they just weren't comfortable when I was turning. So over the years I've started wearing bare feet, and I feel a lot better that way. And I know I can have things drop on my feet and hurt my feet, but I haven't had anything drop on my feet at this stage, so touch wood, I should be okay. During the winter it's pretty cold in the shed and the concrete's cold, but I have the shavings to stand on, and that keeps the feet warm. And it's only when I go to sharpen the tools that I've got to walk across the cold concrete. But otherwise I'm pretty comfortable wearing the bare feet. And it could be a bad habit, could be a good habit, but it's a habit that I'm going to continue doing because I feel comfortable, and it's a nice way to spend a day turning. So number 2 is wearing protective clothing. I've had this apron for quite some years, and what I did was I took off the zip at the front and replaced it with Velcro, so it's pretty easy to put on and off. And as you can see in the video, it certainly gets very dirty on the front, so you can imagine what your shirt or your pants would look like after turning for a day. I didn't realise how dirty it gets, and I did wash it the other day. So the apron is one of my good habits, and I certainly continue wearing an apron just to protect all my shirts and my pants. Number 3 is another habit which it's either good or bad. The manual says you need to turn the lathe off before you adjust the tool rest. And I used to do that when I first started, but I suppose now when you get a bit more competent, a bit more confident, I don't turn the lathe off. I only do that every now and again when I don't think it's safe and the piece of wood is a bit unusual. So that's another habit. It is a bad habit, but I'll continue doing what I'm doing. Number 4 is a habit that I do. It's one of the idiosyncrasies that I have. It's one of many idiosyncrasies that I have. And this one, I've got a roughing gouge that's got a groove in the steel, and the sawdust usually sits in there while I'm turning it. So once I turn the lathe off, I usually tap it on the tool rest. And I didn't realise until I started watching the videos that I do it all the time. I wasn't conscious of it until I watched the videos. And of course, now that I know I do it, and it's just something that happens naturally. So I'm fairly careful as to where I tap the tool. I usually keep it away from the piece. And this one wasn't in the warnings or anything like that. It's just one of the habits that I've got, and it's interesting. It'd be interesting to know if anyone else taps their tool on the tool rest or the lathe once they stop the machine. So up to number 5, and this is a really bad habit, and it's one that I have stopped, and that's wearing gloves. I did bang up my finger at one stage, and it wasn't too good, so I wore a glove for a week while I turned, and then I stopped turning for a couple of weeks until the finger healed up. The other times I've used it is when I'm turning resin, and when you turn resin, you usually get chips coming off, and of course the chips were hitting my thumb because that was the closest part of the hand to the piece of resin, and it used to hurt like hell. So I did wear a glove there a couple of times, and of course every time I put the glove on I made sure there was no spiders in the glove. But that is a habit that I've stopped. It's not a very good habit to have. And number 6 is securing your workpiece, and as you know I do a lot of turning of mistletoe, And the mistletoes are odd sorts. They're punky, they're soft, they've got holes and voids in them, and they're very hard to secure on the lathe once you start. So for the first couple of minutes, I'm fairly aware that it may fly off and fairly careful until I can secure it. That's one of the hard things when you start turning some of these pieces. You've just got to try and find a point that you can secure it onto the lathe. And I think over the years I've started to get a bit better. One's a bit of a challenge trying to secure the piece of wood. And it's one thing that I'll probably wrestle with for the rest of my life, trying to secure mistletoe and all the odd bits of wood that I turn. Number 7 is dust and wearing a face shield I use in the lathe. Notice there's a lot of dust that comes off the workpiece, and it's not just when you're turning, and I didn't notice that until you watch the videos and you've got the sunlight in the background, and there's a lot of dust comes off. And I do a bit of red gum turning, and the red gum is a real dirty, dusty wood, and it gets in all your skin pores, and it's a terrible wood to turn, red gum. But I find that after you turn, there's a lot of dust floating around. As you can see, it floats around under the lights, and it sits around for quite some time. So the window beside the lathe is always open, and that moves the dust around. And I've also got a dust extractor that I have on all day. So that gets rid of a lot of the dust away from the lathe. For a mask, I use the Trend dust masks, and that's got the air filters in it, and it's a sealed unit. So I'm not breathing in any dust. And it's one of those things that it's a bit like driving a car and you always put a seatbelt on. It makes you feel safe. Well, every time I use the lathe, I'm always got the dust mask on, because there's certainly a lot of dust floating around in the shed. And number 8 is the last one, and that's cleaning the area and making sure the area is nice and clean around the lathe. I sweep the floor, I get the air hose and clean up around the lathe and make sure it's all clean, and then sweep all the sawdust away. And I do that every day, and it just makes it a lot easier when you come in the next day and everything's clean and ready to go again. So that's a good habit, and it's a habit that I'll continue doing just to keep the area nice and clean. So they're the 8 habits that I've got. Some are good, some are bad, and it'd be interesting to know if you've got the same sort of habits as what I've got, or whether you've got some better ones or some worse ones. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this short video. I'll see you next time. Cheerio.